said nothing.
Are you talking to me? Oh, I was just like,
I'm sorry.
Hi, you all. Hi, everyone. How are you? So my name is Ebony LaDelle, and I'm excited to moderate this panel, Freshman Orientation, where we'll be discussing writing older teen characters on the edge of adulthood. So first, I'm going to introduce everybody, and then I'll get right into the questions. Right, so Becky Albertalli is the author of the William C. Morris Award winner and National Book Award long list title, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, now a major motion picture, Love, Simon, the acclaim The Upside of Unrequited, and the Simon verse novella, Love, Creekwood, and the New York Times bestselling Leah on the Offbeat. What If It's Us, co-written with Adam Silvera, and Yes, No, Maybe So, co-written with Aisha Saeed. Becky lives with her family in Atlanta. You can visit her online at beckyalbertalli.com. Camryn Garret, oh, sorry. Clap. Camryn Garret grew up in New York and began her writing career at 13 when she was selected as a Time for Kids reporter, interviewing celebrities like Warren Buffett and Kristen Bell. Since then, her writing has appeared on MTV and in the Huffington Post and Rookie magazine, and she was recently selected as one of Teen Vogue's 21 Under 21, Girls Who Are Changing the World. When she's not writing, she studies film at NYU, and she's a proud advocate for diverse stories and storytellers in any medium. Her first novel, Full Disclosure, received rave reviews from outlets such as EW, Glamour, and SLJ, which said in the Star Review, readers will fall in love. Off the Record is her second novel. Candice Iloh is a first-generation Nigerian-American writer, teaching artist, and youth educator. They are a graduate of Howard University and hold an MFA in writing from Lesley University. Their work has earned fellowships from Lambda Literary and Yona, among others. Their debut novel, Everybody Looking, was a finalist for the National Book Award and earned a Michael L. Prince honor. Kristen R. is a native of Memphis, Tennessee. After graduating from college, she began to write her experiences attending a predominantly white institution, which led to the first draft of required reading for the disenfranchised freshmen. She's worked as a mentor for foster youth and has interned in a school setting where she counseled middle school-aged children. Writing stories that reflect unheard voices is what she strives to do. Learn more about Kristen at KristenLeeBooks.com. Angela Velez grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, under the watchful eye of her Peruvian immigrant parents. She earned her BA from Columbia University and her MFA from the University of Pittsburgh, where she was a K. Leroy Irving Fellow. She lives in Pittsburgh, and with her pile of books, 3 plastic flamingos, and 1 wobbly disco ball. Sorry, that threw me off. Lulu Milagro, Search for Clarity is her first novel. You can visit her online at angelavelez.com. You threw me off with that one. All right. So when I was prepping for this panel, and it's so fitting I'm Ebony LaDelle, y'all. I'm the moderator, debut author, Love Radio. Okay, so when I was prepping for this panel, which is fitting because her wedding was this weekend, I kept thinking of Britney Spears' song, I'm Not a Girl, Not Yet a Woman, because, 17, 18 is that weird time. You're trying to figure life out, but, you also finally made it. So it's this weird of, what's next? What do we do next? So this question is also inspired by Angela, who was also making me laugh. Where in your author note, you said the question you hated the most growing up was, what do I want to be when I grow up? But I think it's an important question for all you all to answer because it's a very scary time. You're trying to figure out what to do with your life when you're barely an adult. So you're all sitting here. You're amazing, accomplished writers. You did this thing where you followed your dream and it panned out. But it's good to hear the beginning stages. So tell us about that point in your life when you were the summer before freshman year. Who were you? Where were you? What did you want to do?
freshman year of college?
Summer of, right after you graduated from high school.
Okay. I would love to talk about this.
Yes.
I think the summer before, I had this idea of what I was going to be like in college. I don't think I knew what I wanted to be, but I did feel like I was going to go to college and change everybody at the campus instead of the opposite happening. So I went to an HBCU, I went to Howard, and immediately was turned out by the experience of being around so many intelligent Black people from all over the world. So I really don't think I had an actual sense of self the way that I thought I did. I had all my expectations from family, religious communities, everybody that just thought I was gonna go be like a business person. I had that on my back, but it took actually getting to freshman year to figure out what was gonna happen with me.
So for me, the reason I hated this question is because I knew what the answer was. I wanted to write a book, but I didn't think it was possible. And so I just knew that when I opened all these books I loved, I'd flip to the last page and all my favorite writers lived in New York, or I'd flip to the front page and all these books were made in New York. And so I spent all of senior year just thinking like I have to get to New York. I have to get to New York. And I ended up getting into my dream school. I went to Columbia, and it was really life-changing in that I had spent 12 years in very conservative Catholic school, and I finally was meeting people from all over the world, and I think it was really in some ways intimidating but also kind of inspiring to see all these people who weren't afraid of saying what they wanted to do. And it took me a long time to kind of be more open about it, but it was in a sense that's what I wanted, was to be pushed to try and do this thing I wanted to do.
Okay. Yeah. Summer before high school, I tell this story all the time that I never really wanted to be an author. That wasn't my dream or my goal. It's something that came naturally to me once I started actually putting myself out there, honing my craft. So summer before high school, I just wanted to get out of Memphis. I wanted to get out of the South. I wanted to come to New York. I wanted to be I know I wanted to be creative, but I didn't think that would be writing. I thought I would be this great artist for some reason. I cannot draw at all. And I didn't get to New York. And I got kind of, down about that, and I stayed in the South. And it's just that your dreams, what you want to do, they don't always come to you when you want them. Eventually I got to New York. I moved to New York 4 years ago, and that was 7 years after I graduated high school. And when I moved here, that's when I started writing required reading. I had graduated from that predominantly white college, and I had a lot of issues that I wanted to talk about. And so yeah, your dreams can wait, but don't let them wait too long.
Yeah, I had a sort of similar experience where I really wanted to go to film school, and the best film school in the country was at USC, and I actually didn't get in. So I got stuck going to NYU. Oh, what a bad school. But I grew up in a pretty white town outside of the city, and I really wanted to go somewhere that felt very different and cosmopolitan, and I thought that would be Los Angeles. And I actually didn't get that experience. I ended up moving into the city, but staying in New York. And I think, just like what Kristen said, what's meant to come to you will come to you, and then things will work out. Now, I really did feel like I was in the right school for me, and I got the right experiences I was supposed to get. And yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting moment for me. I viscerally remember that summer because I think I was very, I was and always have been very ambivalent about change. So there was a part of me that was just already desperately missing my friends and family. And even though most of us are still bopping around Atlanta suburbs, same as always for a few more months, but I missed them already. I was one of those kids who, I was in the same school system, public school system from kindergarten through 12th grade. So I'd known a lot of my friends for a long time. But I also, there was a part of me that craved the, I guess, sense of possibility of college, of feeling like I did not have to carry around the baggage of just being myself around people who had always known me for that long. I also was I had not had my first kiss. It was really, I just like had this idea that was gonna like take care of itself as soon as I got to college. It did not.
Oh my God, same.
But I was like so sure that I was gonna like, it was gonna be a very romantic orientation week. I couldn't wait for it. Yeah, it was a disappointment.
I very much was like, oh, I'm gonna like get married, like not in college, but I was
Right.
like, I'm gonna meet my husband. I didn't know I was gay, but like I was like, I'm gonna meet my husband. And we're gonna like see each other at orientation or whatever, and we're gonna give like Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach and be married and like blah blah blah. And then I found out I was gay. So.
That is like my parents met orientation week of college, so like I think that was part of that. Yeah, I felt like that. I didn't have any sense of myself as ever being that cool. Like I knew better than to try to be Greta Gerwig, but like because I am not that cool. But I did feel that pressure.
I love this conversation because there is this expectation of yourself of what you think you're going to be going into college or just entering into the adult world, and then there's the reality of being an adult. So now that we've talked about like the expectation of you all's identities versus what your identities ended up becoming, let's discuss your characters' identities. Identity is something every one of your characters battles with, and sometimes it could be the ones closest to you who try to get you to conceal your identity because of the harm they think it will do to you. So tell us a little about the battles your characters are facing when it comes to their own identities and what inspired you to write it, which I feel like we've heard a little bit of what inspired you to write it based off of your stories, but just give us a little bit more.
Okay, for Savannah. For Savannah, she's coming from Memphis, like me. She's going to this fictional East Coast town where it's majority white, and if you know Memphis is majority black. So she's going to this college, this amazing college, when she wanted to go to an HBCU where she could see people that were like her. So going to this new place, it's very much so a cultural shock for her, and she wants to leave immediately as soon as she steps on the campus. But her mom is like, this is a good opportunity for you. So she struggles with doing what she feels is right for her and trying to be the person in her family that finally accomplishes something. And that part of the story was it was based off my life because the first people in my family to go to college were my grandparents, and then after that, no one else. And so when me and my sisters graduated college, the pressure of going somewhere where we could be, these amazing, extraordinary people was very strong. And I think me and my sisters kind of combated that feeling of, we have to be the ones that change our family structure. And I kind of did, but in a different way, because I graduated college, but I did not graduate well. But I did write a book, so.
There you go.
So similarly, the main character in Everybody Looking Ada, which literally in the Igbo language means first daughter, is just her identity is caught up in like having all this pressure on her back to be successful, to be a leader, to bring people to salvation when she gets to campus. Bring people to salvation when she gets to campus, and just kind of like follow in her father's footsteps, make a lot of money, do all the right things. And she, over time, discovers that she's queer, she's creative, she has a lot of questions about the way that she was raised, questions that she would have gotten in trouble, like asking if she were at home. And just discovering that she just had a lot of opinions that were not patriarchal like what she was raised in. And so it was I wrote that based off of my exact story, just being a Nigerian American, having an immigrant father who instilled all these principles in me, and that I began to think like, oh, this is how I can be successful. This is how I can prove that everything he did was worth it. And she has that pressure in the story. Ada, the whole entire time, is just like, how can I tell my dad this is how I feel? Like, how can I present this to him? Because he set all of this up for me. And here I am just making a mess of what he thought I was going to do. And then very differently in Break This House, my main character, Yamina, there's nothing in the book really about who she wants to be at all. It's more so about her discovering how similar she is to her mother, who she is estranged from. Like, has decided, like, her mom was evil to her. Her mom, changed at some point for some reason that she doesn't know. And has to go through this journey where she discovers, like, I am somewhat like this woman that birthed me, but I also am different because I can learn from what she did.
Can I say, Yamina, also, it's important to talk about when we're talking about identity and just understanding identity of your emotions, because that's a through line in both of your books. And that is what this book is about, is dealing with your emotions and being okay with it and sitting in it and battling with it. And so even if, like, Yamina doesn't know necessarily what she wants to be, she's trying to figure out who she wants to be on the inside. So I had to put, because I think it's beautiful that you did that.
You're right.
I think in my book, most of the sort of pressure about identity comes from how the main character looks, because Josie is plus-sized, and I think that being black and fat or black and plus-sized, especially as a woman, there are a lot of stereotypes attached to that. And I think because she's also very shy and doesn't speak a lot, her journey is really about sort of taking ownership of what people think of her, or like presenting herself in a way that she wants to versus letting other people define herself. I also have like a bisexuality crisis in every book I've written so far. And in this book, Josie sort of has this fling with a girl, which also happens in the first book. You can tell I wrote these in school, and like I was also going through a crisis. But I really liked the way I did it in this book, which is like her love interest, who's a guy, identifies as bisexual, and she doesn't really identify as anything. Because I think, especially as young people, especially like when you're about to leave for college, you don't really know anything. Like you might think you're one way, and then you realize you aren't. And I like that it's sort of left open-ended, and that's something she can figure out later, like how she identifies.
I think a lot about how identity, like many of you said, is forged by the roles we play in our families.
Yeah.
And so in my book, there are 3 sisters, and they just have grown up. There's Santa Clara, who is the perfect daughter. She's going to be a doctor. There's Milagro, who's super boy crazy. And then there's Lulu, who's the baby, and she has to be protected. She's also very ambitious with school, but probably an in-state school would be better because we just always have to look out for Lulu. And they spend so much time having this reinforced that they start to believe that, like, Milagro could never be interested in school because she's so boy crazy and she's, like, must be protected from boys, and we don't talk to her about school. And Clara has no room to fail because she's perfect. And if she would fail, it would be a total disintegration of her identity. And so the whole book is them realizing that they are more alike than they imagined, and also that they are multifaceted, and they shouldn't necessarily like feel the need to live up to these expectations that are actually limiting them in many ways.
Yeah, so I am actually talking about my little novella today. This is like the first time I've ever gotten a panel about it, so I'm excited. But so I wrote a book called Love Creekwood, and what it is like just a skinny little thing of only emails between 2 couples, and also like the friends are emailing each other too. So it's the main couple from Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, and the main couple from Leah on the Offbeat, and they are, 2 of them, basically, one couple is at the same school, in the same room. They are roommates.
And they were roommates.
And
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
But yeah, no, I mean, and also like their parents know they're dating, but I think they maybe don't know they're roommates. Like, and and it is a little scary, I think. More so for Leah than Abby because Leah's a mess. But she, I do think she is a little bit afraid of the closeness of um, sharing this space and having this very good thing right here, but it doesn't feel like it should work. And then the kind of opposite situation is happening with. I'm drilled into not spoilers. I'm gonna say Simon and Blue, but Simon and Blue are at different schools, and they are going through it apart from each other. And I think they went into college with this idea that we each picked the perfect school for, I picked the perfect school for me. He picked the perfect school for him, and we were going to make this work. And Simon in particular, just he can't do it. He's pining and then trying to figure out if maybe his school that he is at is the perfect school for him, but maybe it's not because he's very unhappy without Blue. That feels a little gross to him, I think, to be that kind of kid who can't survive without his significant other. So I guess just a lot of push-pull with closeness and distance, and how close am I allowed to be to these people? Are we ridiculous teenagers being too impulsive, or are we beginning to make adult decisions with long-term implications?
Okay, so next question is, family is such an important element to all of your stories, and I love to see how the teens in these stories are shaped by the people around them, good, bad, or indifferent. Okay. Can you talk about the family relationships in your books and how you dreamt up writing them?
All right, so for my book, it's all about what comes after high school, what kind of college should you apply to, and I felt like in a lot of the books and movies that I saw about white families that were applying to college, the child would say, I want to go to school, and the mom would say, great, go for it. And I was thinking about how that was so different from my own experience, where this was a family decision. This was your acceptance to whatever school was a reflection of the sacrifices that your family had made. And that is both a heavy burden to carry, but also something that is really joyful and something worth celebrating. And I wanted these characters to kind of go through that and understand what are my parents' dreams, what are my own, and how can I honor their sacrifices and honor all the things that they've gone through while also getting to do the things that I want to do. And so much of this is about their single mom and their relationship and understanding what is next for me and for us as a family.
Piggyback off you, Savannah's college choice was very much a family decision. It wasn't just her own. Even towards the end of the novel, when she's making another decision, she still hasn't really found herself, or she doesn't trust herself enough. So she asks her found family, her family that she made in school, her friends, what should she do? And it is very much her being told that you have to make these decisions yourself at the end of the day. And while family is important in making these decisions, like Angela said, these are your dreams. What do you want to do? Where do you see yourself? What is your future? And family, sometimes they can't really gauge that as much as you can.
Yeah, I also love stories about sisters. I have 3 sisters in my book, but it's not the same. But I think the biggest relationship in the book is the main character Josie with her older sister, who's chaperoning her on this trip around the country. And I based it on my own relationship with my sister. And I think what was so important to me about it is I was on a panel earlier and we were talking about most of the time in YA. the parents are killed off or like put somewhere because it's just easier. But I think the sister is. I think the annoying thing about sisters is they see you as you really are when you don't really want to be seen that way. And so Josie's older sister will say like, "You're a really good writer," but then she'll also be like, why are you like this? Like, and I think that's really the value of having sisters, someone who will like call you out on the way that you're being a mess, but they'll also really validate you and experiences that you've had. And I wanted to sort of celebrate my own sister that way.
In Break This House, I really wanted to literally present and unpack this idea of a broken family. So, like, I really wanted to just like look at the connections between these systemic failures and like how that trickles down to a family and like ruins relationships between parents and their children. And so there is a very tense sister relationship in Break This House that is just on some like you got out and I stayed here type of stuff. And then also just lots of tension between two different kinds of parents, like a parent that made a very big mistake and then a parent that just had to make some very fast decisions to make sure that they survive. And so I guess when it comes to family in general in my stories, I like to present dysfunction because it's what I know. And I really don't think any family is perfect. And I'm actually very disturbed by like the traditional nuclear family. It makes me uncomfortable. Sitting around a table like that, uncomfortable. Like every time somebody tries to do that with me, I'm just like, we could just sit anywhere in the room. But yeah, I really wanted, in Break This House, family is just such a big part of the story in the sense that the main character tried to leave her mother's family behind because of the trauma and could not get away from them because it's her. It's a part of her. It's a part of her history. And in order for her to really understand herself, she had to literally go back.
So with Love Creekwood, I think like, this book has kind of 4 point of view characters. And so in the interest of like not being too all over the place, like I definitely see the 4 of them as kind of a found family for each other. And they do also kind of in the background have like their own families apart from that. But one of the things that was really fun to explore with this book was to dive into these like different dynamics that come up in a group of friends where some people are closer within the group, like, certain little sets of 2 are really close and certain sets of 2 are more distant, but are pulled together in the interest of like taking care of like their mutual super close friend. And like that is very much kind of, I have always had friend groups, sometimes with complicated dynamics that don't even necessarily make sense, but it's just it's not so much shifting alliances because it's not adversarial, but it's just like just the intimacy kind of like ebbs and flows in different directions. And so I guess that was a fun thing to explore with like these 4 characters who have known each other a long time, who are apart from each other for the first time, and who are kind of trying to help each other navigate some pretty big life decisions without like overstepping and crossing boundaries.
So while families can be wonderful, they can also be difficult. So I wanted to dive into like parental expectations, whether on the page or not. We've all experienced them. The characters in your novels, they're all experiencing some sort of parental expectation, even if they put that on themselves, whether they should stay in this school, whether they should, continue to write, whether they should, having a mother who's kind of, trying to do the best that she can, but it's kind of making, Josie feel uncomfortable about her weight. Like, there's so many things happening that you feel like you can't, be what your parents want you to be, and you're trying to, be your own person. Can you talk about how it affects the main characters in your novels?
I'll go first. I think with, like you mentioned, Josie is plus size, so I think there's a lot of pressure from her mother to lose weight and to be healthy, and I think it comes from like her mom wanting to be a good mother and wanting the best for her and not understanding that what she views as healthy isn't necessarily what's healthy for Josie. And I also think there's the sort of the inciting incident of the book is Josie's parents are like, you're kind of like a weirdo. Like, there's something wrong with you. Like, they're like, you have no friends. Like, you get off of your computer, basically. And I think that's something that a lot of parents would do just because they're like, this isn't normal. And I think part of growing up is understanding that what your parents see as normal might not be what you see as normal. And I think Josie I think part of the reason why she's so anxious is because she's sort of constantly holding herself to these standards that her parents expect for her. They're like comparing her to her older sisters. They're saying, your sisters were in all these clubs, your sisters are so involved in the community and you're not. And I think part of her journey is realizing that just being her can be enough. And her parents will still love her even if they're annoying about it.
Yeah, there's, I think, very similar sort of a lot of parental expectation in my book, but so much is tied to the siblings and how they're doing. And so when my book starts, their oldest sister is at college, and it's clear that things are not going well, and she has gone out of state. And so their mom is like, okay, time to recalibrate. No one else is leaving the state. And so Lulu is freaking out and is thinking, how can I fix this? How can I get my mom's approval so that I can go? And all of her actions are about getting her mom to change her mind rather than just kind of like staking it out on her own. And so much of I wanted to show that this is about their mom trying to protect their daughters and also sort of doing what she knows best, but also affecting her daughters in many ways. And the middle sister has a very exciting and very hot boyfriend, and they're very worried about this and are like, this is not what good Catholic girls do. And all of the messaging that Milagro is getting from her mom is affecting the way that she acts around her boyfriend. And so the expectations are both academic, but also reflect their Catholic identity in many ways and kind of taints the things that they want for themselves and that they see possible.
I like that you brought up the middle sister's, like, her boy craziness, because she also finds out that she's really good at school, but because of the expectation of her mom, that's clouded by like, oh, your boy crazy, you're doing this. So that's another great example.
And her teachers as well, because
Yeah.
they're like, Lulu's so smart and advanced and Glada's so perfect, and you are you. And that is, really hard for her to hear all the time in school and from her parents at home. Yeah.
While I was writing Everybody Looking, I realized I was writing a character that was literally afraid of her dad. So, like, I can't speak for all immigrant parent-child relationships, but I was really afraid of my dad, and I didn't even realize it until after I graduated from college and realized that, like, I wasn't as confrontational as a lot of, like, friends were with their parents. Like, I was very careful with my words. I would avoid a phone call rather than telling my dad, like, hey, I'm not going to church. No. You call every week. No, I'm not going. No, I'm not going. I would just avoid the phone call on Sunday, like, and we'll just talk on Monday and pretend that day didn't happen. And so it was like, in Everybody Looking, I really wanted to show someone questioning, but also just deeply afraid of the disapproval that they are going to be met with, and the shame and the judgment and just like the lack of support. Like, not only am I going to make this person, my parent, my father, upset with me, but I also am going to disappoint the entire family because of, like, what my name means and what my role is in this family.
Like Candice in my novel, there's a whole chunk where Savannah goes weeks without talking to her mother because She doesn't want to hear like, oh, you can do it. Oh, this is just for a little while, or you can stick it out. You're strong. And she just didn't want to hear that, and so I feel like in the novel that those expectations really damaged her freshman year. Like rereading the novel as a consumer and not a writer, I was like, wow, you're really not having a good time, huh? And so that is rereading. That was one of the biggest takeaways I got from my book. It was that she had a very horrible freshman year, and towards the end, she kind of, when she steps away and she realizes that this is my life and she takes charge of that, you can see that she starts to come into herself. She starts to make decisions for herself, and those expectations no longer matter because she realizes, oh, I'm Savannah. I can do whatever I want to do. I really.
Yeah, when I think so, I think kind of what jumps out to me the most for kind of parental expectations and that kind of just being in the background would be Simon, and a lot of this is more from Simon versus than Love Creekwood, but it's the same dude, and I think for Simon, it's not so much that his parents have any specific, concrete expectations that he's pushing up against. It's kind of this idea that just his parents think of him in a certain way. He's seen himself in a certain way. Everybody around him has an idea of who he is, and he finds a lot of comfort in that, but also feels like very boxed in by that. And I think that push-pull is like the heart of what he goes through in Simon Versus, but also to like when he pops up in Leah's book and then in Love Creekwood. I mean, like with Simon, it's just always about just the comfort of knowing exactly who I am and like things being somewhat static versus the pull toward change. Yeah.
So that's a really good tie, Becky, because, well, first of all, talking about freshman year being difficult, I think we can all safely say that freshman year, it was just a really difficult time. Whether, doesn't matter how much fun we have, you're experiencing a lot of changes at once. And if you're averse to change, that's hard. If you're missing your comfort, like your significant other, that makes it even harder. If you're trying to have the expectations of like what your mother wants you to be versus like what you're trying to be and what you're trying to fight against, that's hard. So these characters are standing up against powerful people or powerful emotions, whether it's Me Too, whether it's admission schemes, whether it's parents, whether it's just figuring out if they went to the right school, if like a long distance relationship works. They're all major life events and they're experiencing them for the first time. So what do you hope readers take away from like reading these experiences and trying to figure out like how to navigate their own?
Definitely do what works for you, while taking your parents' opinions into account is great. Don't make that your reason for making any decisions when it comes to choosing a college, when it comes to even choosing what you want to wear, choosing what you read, choosing what you consume. I think parents mostly understand that, especially during the summer before high school, the summer before college, or your freshman year, that you're going to change, and that's okay.
I think for me, I really hope the takeaway is that people's low expectations of you, whether it's your teacher, whether it's your family, whether it's your parents, have no actual bearing on how well you're going to do at something, and that it is like good to try and fail and try again, and the only person that determines how successful that you are at something maybe you're trying at is you yourself, rather than these people around you who are saying, I don't think you can do that so much.
I think for me, the takeaway from my books, and probably nobody needed this message more than I did myself, is it's okay to um, walk down one path and in one direction and then totally pivot and change your mind. And, it doesn't have to be set in stone.
Yeah, I would say like you don't have to be fearless to get something really big done, and you don't have to. You may think that you're alone while doing something, and then realize that other people have had similar experiences, or other people want to help you, even if they seem completely unlikely.
I think I want readers to read Everybody Looking and feel supported in the thought that they want to go away somewhere else. Like they want to separate themselves from their family, do their own thing, explore. I want young people to read it and realize, like, hey, like who I am going into this new experience as may not be who I really am yet. I haven't really had all the experiences that I could have. I haven't met all the people that I can meet. I haven't had the freedom that I could have. And it is important for you to have experiences by yourself that have nothing to do with the people that raised you. And it is important for you to hopefully at some point not internalize how they respond to that. And know that like however they respond to that, that's their stuff. You still have to do your own thing. You have to go away. I am so glad I went away because I don't think my brain would have been, I don't think I would have developed or matured in the way that I did had I decided to just stay at home and stay in the comforts of my community and my family. I would not have discovered like my more bold, brave self.
Okay, so I have a few fun questions. So in required reading for the disenfranchised, Savannah's mom has Savannah repeat, "I deserve to be here" when she moves into her dorm. What are some other affirmations you think your characters could have used throughout the novel, or even some affirmations you tell yourself being an author?
That I am an author. That's the biggest one. Imposter syndrome is real, especially now that this is my debut novel. I never wanted to be a writer. I never wanted to be an author. This all just fell in my lap, kind of. So telling myself that I deserve to be in these spaces, that the people, like I just met Rita Williams Garcia, and she was like one of my faves growing up, and meeting her I was starstruck. But now I know we're colleagues now, and that's weird to say.
I used to be a college advisor, and so I feel like what I told my students is very much like what I would put in my book, which is that it's okay to try something and to make mistakes, and life would be so boring, and we would not learn anything about ourselves if we didn't fail at something, and the only thing to do when you make a mistake is to try again and not make the same mistake, because that would also be very boring. But this kind of sort of feeling that how can we learn if things are so easy and we're not being challenged in any way, and only when we are challenged are we given the opportunity to kind of rise up to that challenge.
I think my affirmation is like, I can quit whenever I want. That's literally, or I'm going home soon. Those are two good affirmations for me.
The affirmation that popped into my head it's inappropriate. This is the PG version of it. I think that the affirmation is care less. Like, I think you can figure out what the other version is.
I got it.
Yeah, I think young people at some point should have an opportunity to just like say screw it. Like I can do what I want to do. I can make this mistake. Like, I need to make this mistake to see how I even feel about this thing. And just to block everything else out. Just even if it's the first few months that you're having this new experience. Like, sit with your own body, see how you're really feeling. Really don't think about what other people are feeling. Just for a little bit and see how that feels in your body.
I mean, really, like, all of this, and then just also... it's okay not to know or have the answer yet. It's okay to kind of inhabit a transitional space, like, emotionally, physically, in any way. Yeah.
So I am going to open it up because we have a few more minutes for questions. So does anyone have any questions? Don't be shy.
Wow, none?
None? Okay. So so then I'm going to ask another question then. For aspiring writers out there, because I'm sure there are a lot, and I don't want to call you out, but I know a lot of people are probably here because they want to write. What is a piece of advice you wish someone gave you about being an author?
I've got one. You have the right to set your own boundaries, and you don't have to have a reason to. You don't have to justify the boundaries that you set. You can do that early, and you have the right to change your boundaries at any time. So.
Sign.
Don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare your writing to other people. I know sometimes it's hard, especially because we have to read what we write to write what we write, and it's hard to do that and not compare yourself. But that is my thing. That is what my mentor told me when I first started writing, and I have taken that with me.
I think in a similar vein, when you see a book on a bookshelf and then you look at your draft in Word that is like just a hot mess, to know that that book on the shelf has gone through so many drafts and revisions, and so many people have looked at it and given comments and thoughts, and like your book is just like, it's going to get there eventually, but it's okay for it to be different in that sense.
I think I'm thinking about the fact that as a Black queer writer, there has been this energy that I should just be grateful for whatever happens. Like, oh, you have a book out there. Oh, you get to have these little experiences. Be grateful. And I think I wish I had gotten the advice that, like, hey, it also is good to know who you are and to know what you're worth and to want more than what you are being offered and to question what's in your contract and to question what is being suggested to you when you are putting a story together. Like, yes, be grateful because not everybody gets to have this experience, but also these books wouldn't exist without us. So, like, you also as a writer, like, have a right to feel a sense of confidence and not necessarily entitlement, but purpose. Like, I'm supposed to be here. I literally am supposed to be here. And if what I am being offered or how I'm being treated in the publishing process is not enough for me, I have a right to feel that way and to question it and to ask for better.
I definitely agree with that, especially as Black femmes or Black women. I think you shouldn't be afraid to demand more, even if they say they can't get it for you. Because you can look at the way that white authors are treated or straight authors are treated, and don't be afraid to ask for more, even if you don't be afraid that you're going to be a burden, because you're literally part of the product. So I would not be afraid to ask for more, even if they can't get it. Who cares? You asked. And I would also say get a group chat. There's so many things that people share that should be in group chats, and I'm guilty of this too. But I think publishing group chats, especially if you have other people who are querying or trying to be on the same journey, it's really helpful because they specifically understand the struggle that you're going through. And then if you want to complain about something and you're published, right? Like I feel like if you're trying to complain to someone who's querying and you're a published author, they're going to be like, why are you complaining? You're published. So having people who are at the same level as you, so you can complain about contracts or marketing or whatever, people who really understand you feel so validated.
All right. Well, are there any more questions? I'm trying to give y'all a chance to ask questions if you have them. But I don't. Anybody? Oh, yes, right.
Come on.
Go now.
I didn't know if you can talk. I know you talked. You're working on a novella. Is anybody else working on anything coming up that you can talk about, or just?
Great question.
My second novel follows Savannah's best friend Bianca as she navigates teenage motherhood in Memphis. It comes out January 24th, 2023.
Yay.
I I don't know the date of my next book, so you're kind of losing me out. Mine comes out in January 2023, and it's about a girl who decides she wants to have a coming out party, and she's going to use this party to announce that she's queer to her whole community. Except her mom doesn't know that she's queer, and also her mom just lost her job, so she's trying to figure out the money situation. And yeah, January.
I also don't have a date. This is fall, winter 2023, and it's about a girl who is figuring out what it means to be an artist and whether are artists only in museums, or what does it mean to make art outside of that, and sort of what does that mean for her future.
So my next, my editor's here confirming my info. So May of 2023, I have a book coming out about a girl who is just the absolute best ally to the queer community. She is a very, very big ally, and she's definitely straight, and the love interest is a girl. So there's
So I also don't have my date, but my next book, Salt the Water, is my second novel in verse, and it comes out spring 2023. And it is about a non-binary teen who has dreams of living off the grid with their friends after high school. And it takes place in a post-COVID world where the kids are young people are basically fed up with how adults are running society, so that they've decided they don't want to participate anymore, but they don't know about the real world. So it's going to be real intense how they kind of navigate like money and banks and not using banks and all that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you all so much.
Is it on? Come on, Bronx voice.
I have a question for all of you lovely folks. Thank you so much for coming down to the Bronx. You've written more than one story at this point, right? What is the hardest part for you? What is the easiest part for you? And can you talk a little bit about the pains of promoting your book?
The first draft really sucks. It's terrible. I'm the worst writer when I'm writing my first draft. It's really bad. That's what I have to say about it.
I can do a draft. The revising kills me every time. I'm currently in the editing stage, and it's terrible because I just think I'm great. So why do I have to revise so much? What was the second part of your question?
The marketing, pains of marketing.
Oh,
right.
doing it actually, like getting out and having to. I love meeting people who have read my book, but I'm also very introverted, if you cannot tell. So, yeah, that part is hard.
I also hate drafting. I have to trick myself. I got really into sewing, and so if I write a certain amount of words, I'll let myself take a little sewing break, or I'll go on a walk, or I have a Twix bar, Raisinets waiting for me. But it's just those first 12,000 words where it's just empty and there's nothing there, and it's not in your brain either, is quite painful.
Yeah, I hate marketing. I am not a marketing major. I am not, I did not become a writer for this. And it's hard because I feel like every book I do, there's a new thing people are doing. Everyone's on TikTok now, and or there's a new giveaway you should be doing, or a new theme or whatever, and I just can't. I'm not good at it, and that's my pain, I think.
Yeah, it's the combination for me. I think it's trying to draft while also being public facing and kind of interacting with readers who are mostly incredible, and a lot of times those interactions give the writing its spark, but then every once in a while you're like, why'd you tag me in this? It's a whole day of drafting where you're just am I really bad at writing all characters? Like, or whatever the helpful constructive criticism was of a book that you wrote in 2013. And you don't know when it's coming, and they tag you in it, and that's the hardest part, I think. So, yeah, still.
I really think it's terrible how there are people that tag us in reviews on Instagram.
Yeah, don't do that.
It's really bad. It really hurts our feelings. And you should keep that over there. But but I also just I want to co-sign this that I really just prefer to be a writer and then have the marketing people do the marketing. I think that's the worst part, is realizing that you're the best person to sell your book at the end of the day. People do need to hear from you, see your face, hear you talk about the book, and sometimes you just wish that you could just write it and sit down. And you can't.
Oh, I didn't know I was gonna be. I would say I actually really like revising. I do, because I'm yes, grill it. Tell me everything that I'm doing wrong. That's what it's that constructive criticism that I actually am here for. And marketing, I'm actually, I used to be a marketer in publishing, so this is pretty awkward. But I will say that I think there's something to, it's difficult, and I will say to everybody on this stage, as someone who used to say, "Oh, can you just make this 5-minute video, this 5-second video telling me about the book?" I feel for y'all. I'm sorry. I'm publicly saying I'm sorry. But there is something to a reader, because there's so much noise, there's so much happening, that a reader wants to know that the person behind this beautiful book is actually the person who they hope that they are, And so I think if we can get away from marketing and more how do you show up as yourself, so this person knows, okay, I can trust that whatever this author puts out is something that they're doing it to protect me, they're doing it to help me, they're doing it to build my confidence. I think that'll just make being an author a little bit more better, So that's my little 2 cents on marketing. So anywho, I think if there are no more questions, that's it. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to these wonderful authors for being here today. Thank y'all for being here. Hope you enjoy.